Welcome to Freedom Cast, where your hosts, Jordan and Miranda, show you how to get just a little bit more out of life. Are you ready to leave normal behind?
Hey there, Freedom Casters. You got Jordan and Miranda.
Hello.
Here with you today on Freedom Cast, Leaving Normal Behind. We're going to be talking about some fun stuff today. We're going to be talking about
communication.
Communication. That's everyone's favorite word, especially if you're in a relationship. Communication is an important topic, even not just in, one-on-one spouse relationships, but it's also important for family relationships as well, because we want to make sure we're communicating.
And friends and work relationships, just in general, everyone should be a good communicator, really. And I think everyone can improve. So we just wanted to throw our 2 cents in today and give you some ideas on how you can improve on communicating with other people.
Exactly, just to share some of our own insights and some of our own stories on it. But we believe that it's important for our Freedom Cast audience to really understand communication. And certainly there are things that Miranda and I still have to learn about a lot of things and about communication as well. But it is something in our marriage that we've definitely strived towards, to be able to communicate with each other effectively. And we've learned a lot along the way through not always the best of circumstances, but that's how you learn. You make mistakes. I can definitely speak from experience on making mistakes and learning a lot in that way as far as communication goes. So we're just going to be talking about that, but we're happy to share some of our stories there.
Yeah, so to start, I just wanted to go over the basic levels of communication, and this is with anybody in your life. You can have the first level, which is
the ultra level.
No, this is the anti-ultra level.
Oh, the anti-ultra level.
We're working bottom up here. Is cliche.
This is baby level.
Yes, cliche. So this is, the person you pass in the hallway at work and you say, "Hey, Bob, how you doing?" And he says, "I'm good, how are you?" And you say, "Good." And then that's all you say for the rest of the day. So just cliches like that. That is just the most basic communication level. Just people, So that is cliche. That is the first level. The second level is fact-based. So this is the person that you go over and say, "Man, can you believe how cold it still is? It's crazy." And they're like, "Yeah, I know. This weather, man." And you're like, "Yeah, it's crazy." So that's the second one. A little
like
more.
Like small talk.
Yes, like small talk.
Kind of. Is that a similar thing?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just fact-based, so it's talking about things that
you can't
really argue with it,
so not it could still be important. It could still be things, because it is, I guess, important to know how the weather's going to be.
Yeah.
So it's not importance. It's just
it's not something you're not having a heated debate over something.
Okay.
It's just, it's 30 degrees outside. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm learning this too, because me and Miranda got a lot of this information from a recent thing that we went to called Wed Talks. It was something our pastor was doing. We took some notes. We just wanted to talk about some of the things that we learned from that. And then Miranda took even more copious notes than I have, because I didn't take these notes. So I'm learning too. It's pretty awesome. So You got cliche, fact-based, and?
Next is opinion-based. So this is, so the next level is opinion-based. And this level is someone that that you both love the same TV show. Like you both love The Office or Game of Thrones, and it's the person you go to Monday morning. "Oh my goodness, that episode, what did you think about so-and-so dying or this happened?" So that's the next level, opinion-based. So this is where we're getting more into the more serious stuff, things that you're talking more about your opinions, how you feel about things. It's not just basic, general, run-of-the-mill conversation.
But saying The Office is awesome would be fact-based.
That is fact-based, yes.
That's not opinion.
Very true. And then the next one
Just wanted to note that. That's important.
The next one is feeling-based. So this is people who are close friends, your family, people that know you very well. If you're having a rough day and they say, "How are you?" you're not going to shoot back with a cliche. You're going to say, "Oh man, I've been having a really tough day. You wouldn't believe you know, like
Johnny so-and-so parked in my spot.
yeah, exactly. So
'cause that happens all the time. That Johnny dude.
Johnny so-and-so. So that is the feelings based. So this is like we're getting into a deeper relationship here. This is a deeper level of communication. So that is feeling based. And then the best communication level is transparent.
This is the ultra level.
This is the ultra level.
I knew we would get there eventually, folks.
Yes. So this is transparent.
Or the Uber level.
The Uber level. So this is like in marriage, someone that you are extremely close to that you don't even need to say if you're not feeling well because they will know because they know you so well, they'll be able to tell. So that is from cliche to transparent, just the different levels of communication you have with people. So I think it's interesting just to try to, you know, apply this and think, you know, I am on a cliche level with Bob, like I said earlier. Maybe I should try to get a little further, a little more, even just to fact-based and say, what do you think about this weather? Or what about them Cubs?
I thought you could say the Dodgers or
I couldn't think of a good one.
Yankees, Red Sox. That would
Yeah.
be good with my family.
So just keep it in mind when you're around people, you know, how can I push this relationship to the next level?
If you want to.
Yeah, if you don't want to, obviously just keep it where it's at. But
Johnny so-and-so, you may not want to go to the next level.
yeah,
with
because he
him.
takes your spot. So
Yes.
that's just, I think it's very interesting to think about. So you can just think about that and the relationships you have, and maybe there's someone that you feel maybe stuck at feeling based, but you want to go to transparent. And so all these tips we're going to give you are going to help you to just build a deeper form of communication with people.
And I think before we get into any deeper with that, and this is kind of a question like for Miranda, because I think she's better at that, and I really have to think about it. And, you know, we talked last show about introverts versus extroverts, and it's something to think about. One good way to move from a fact-based to an opinion-based, or to kind of move along that scale of relationship and of communication, is to ask different questions. And that's harder for me because I don't necessarily want to be asked those questions by people, but you do have to ask people questions to get them moving. And maybe Miranda can talk more about that if she knows what I'm trying to say, because she's just better at. Because if you're going to ask surface level and opinion based questions, you're going to get those type of answers back. So you kind of have to push a little bit more.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into the first and like golden rule of communication is great communicators are great listeners. So if you have somebody and you aren't sure why they're not really giving you a lot back, it might be because you're not really listening. And people can tell when you're, you know, thinking about something else, you're not having good eye contact, or you're looking down at your phone. People always notice that stuff, so they'll be like, well, I'm not going to waste my time talking about my problems when, you know, you're not even listening to me. So
that is true. Sorry if you were going to say something else. That's big for first impressions too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I think it's just probably one of my pet peeves and probably something I need to get better at. But yeah, like Miranda said, if I'm asking someone, or if someone asks me a question and then I go to answer and that person is obviously not listening, I lose all interest in talking to that person. And maybe I shouldn't be that. Maybe I should be a little bit more gracious, because I'm sure there are times where I have done, you know, the exact same thing to people. But I just lose my patience at that. And that's something to remember and think about too, is if you're going to be asking these questions and trying to move along in the communication scale, make sure you're listening for the responses. And sometimes I will just admit to people too, I said, you know, I knew I asked the question. I did not listen for the answer, and I apologize. And usually people, if you're going to be honest and vulnerable in that way, you know, they'll forgive you that first time, especially if they know you.
Yeah. So that definitely, when you start talking to someone, if you are actively listening, you will find ways to kind of fit in new questions to lead the conversation to a deeper level. So if you're talking to someone and they mention like that they have a husband, or they mention something about kids, people love talking about their families for the most part. If it's a touchy subject, you'll probably know right away. And
a lot of people just like talking about themselves, and that's a truth. That's not meant as offense to anyone. That was one of the things I learned when I was getting to know people as far as their marketing gig at our retirement community. I had to get to know someone right away. And the biggest thing they said was just to get them talking, but really that people like to talk about themselves. And that's definitely not true of everyone. But for a lot of people, it is.
Yes. So if you want someone to talk more, just ask them about themselves, like that person. That was a weird way to say that. Ask them about
it makes sense to me.
themselves, or ask them about their family. Usually people will take that and run with it, and you'll know their life story before you realize it. And it's just a great way to, keep the conversation going and get to a deeper level. Ask people about, what their interests are, what their hobbies are, their kids, their pets. There are a lot of animal lovers out there. Start talking about a pet, they can go on for hours. So definitely just try your best to be a very good listener. And even if they are going for a long time about themselves because you got them started, just still actively listen and pay attention, and don't just space out. Be like, oh man, I didn't think they were ready to keep talking this long.
Yes, and Miranda has a great point there when she said active listening, or actively listen. And that's important, because that's something I never really thought of much as I'm falling over. It's something I never really thought of much, in that, in order to active listening, it means thinking of good questions and responding in appropriate ways. It's not just listening and taking the information in and learning more about them, but it's about responding and asking the right questions back as well. And that's something I've definitely even been learning, I would say even recently, just to figure out how to get to know people on a deeper level. Because we all want that. We all yearn for that for people. We want to be at a deeper level with people, whether it's our spouse or whether it's with good friends, even family too. I say even family, of course, family. But I think sometimes we think that we're already at a certain level with our family, but maybe we want to get to that next level of just communication. So it's important to think about that. Part of listening is not only just listening and hearing the other person, but then it's asking the right questions as well. Would you agree with that, Miranda? I think that's
Yes.
what active listening kind of means, but
Yeah, it's more than just looking at a person and having your ears open. It's, comprehending what they're saying, and, trying to read their nonverbal cues with what they're talking about, and responding, like you said, with good questions that relate, and just trying to, stay interested and engaged the whole time. Because when somebody is disengaged, it's very obvious. If, someone's talking about, oh, my daughter she got 2 goals in her soccer game today, and you're like, what's his name? That's when they know that you're not listening. You're not actively listening.
Yes.
So that's definitely a very important part of communication, is not just being a good listener, but being a good active listener.
And again, these are things that, we don't have perfected, but it's fun to talk about because it's a good thing to remember. It's good. Okay. I tell myself, okay, when I'm going to Camp Gladiator, I need to be listening to people, or trying to, spur conversations with people. And we know how hard it can be because, a lot of you out there are probably introverts like we are. Maybe you're in the middle like Miranda, between the two, or maybe you're like a full-blown introvert like me. It just kind of depends on where you're at with that, but it's good to hear. It's good to learn. It's good to question yourself on this as well.
Yes. And I will say introverts, I think, naturally are better at listening. I think extroverts are better at pushing the communication to the next level because they like to talk, but then
Yes.
Introverts are also more introspective and better at just kind of, listening to other people because maybe they don't like talking about themselves. So yes, that was our first couple points.
Yes. Did we jump into the next one?
So the next one, for this one, communicating in a way that the person you're talking to can relate to, and treating that person the way they want to be treated. It's like in a marriage, understanding what the your spouse's love language is. And if your spouse's love language is, words of affirmation, you want to make sure you're using that and you're not doing acts of service all the time, and that doesn't translate to them as a love language. So
we could do a whole podcast on love languages.
Yes.
We probably should, because that's super important, because love languages are not, they correlate to marriage and relationships, but they can just correlate to how you're interacting with people and how you're communicating with people. It's funny how often these love languages came up in our WED talks. It's funny when they come up in our To Becoming One marriage class that Miranda and I are co-facilitating right now. It's just interesting because they are concepts and ideas, but it's just fun to be able to figure out what it is that makes people tick, because everyone's a little bit different. And the thing with love languages that's most interesting is that sometimes you'll try to show love by demonstrating your love language towards someone else. And then it's just funny because that person doesn't see that as a love language. They don't necessarily get that doesn't really fill them up. But it's just interesting because you're stuck trying to do, I know we're getting off topic, but it's such an interesting thing because you're stuck trying to show love. You could feel like you're showing it in the best way that you know how, but you're actually not, in terms of the other person, you're not really showing that. I just find that's interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. So that's, it takes a lot of work because you need to pay attention to even just, your friends, your coworkers, what makes them tick, and what do you think they would appreciate when you're talking to them? If they're having a tough day, are they the type of person that would rather have you crack a joke and try to make them forget about it? Are they someone who would, rather have you sit down and talk with them for 2 hours and work through your feelings and emotions? It's just you have to be able to kind of read the room and figure out, what would make this person specifically feel better, because depending on who the person is, it's going to look very different. For me, if I'm upset, it's like, just get me ice cream and let's not talk about it.
Yeah, ice cream and a hug, and
yeah,
we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So it's just, like I said, it just depends on who the person is, and you really want to speak the language of the other person, because that is basically what communicating is in a nutshell. If they're not, understanding, if you're coming across as mean to them, then you're really not communicating well if you are trying to be positive. So
yeah, and every person is unique. Every situation is unique. So yeah, you're going to have to kind of base it on every situation that you're going through.
And another big thing about communication, which is...
especially as it relates to marriage, I think in this case, we're talking about verbal deposits. Is that the next one we're jumping to, Miranda?
Sure.
Yeah, we're going to jump to that. That's a term I had not heard before until our pastor, Bobby, used that. I don't know if you've heard that before, Miranda. No? Yeah, we just thought it was super interesting. It really just means building the other person up. And just, even if your love language isn't words of affirmation, it's still good to build the other person up and say, like, hey, you did great today. I'm so proud of you. I love you so much, Miranda, for, all that you do around the house. Or I'm so proud of you because you've been working for like 10 days straight.
Which is true.
It's true. And she's coming home and doing a podcast right before her day off. So it's awesome. And she's crushing it. So it's just being able to build the other person up is important. And just placing those verbal deposits, I think, is a nice, like, kind of mental image to have. You're putting a coin in the slot, and you don't do it for that reason, really. At least you shouldn't. But just building the person up, and just always taking care of each other.
Yeah, and this is really important in marriage, because the more you can, put those deposits in, the more your spouse knows when you have something maybe harder to discuss. You have that foundation, and that person encourages you and loves you and supports you. Maybe it's something they think you need to improve on. You're going to take that a lot better when you have a basis of not criticism, but love and respect. And that's going to be, huge if you have a difficult conversation like that, because that's just going to, you have that solid foundation, and you'll be able to take that criticism better. I mean, criticism's always hard to take, but that's definitely, those deposits are crucial to make that better. And you can do that with not just your spouse. I think it's really important in a marriage, but friendships as well. If you just go out of your way to find ways to compliment your friends, and make them genuine. Don't just say things that you don't really mean. Just
and be real with people.
Yeah.
Like Miranda just said, be genuine. But that's a theme that often comes up on this show that we try to share as much as we can because it's so important. It's just be real with people. Don't feel like you have to be this this type of person that has it all together, because the fact of the matter is most people out there have, they have their issues. We're not going to see that on Facebook. We're not really going to talk about that with a lot of people. But for the most part, everyone's going through something. I don't know where I read that in a book or heard that, but just talking about the fact that everyone has their own inner battles or something like that, or own private battles they're going through. And I think just remembering that is important, that you're not alone in different struggles. And then that can kind of help you to have empathy towards someone else, and then them to have empathy toward you, to have that real communication.
Yeah, I think it was like a fun word we learned. It was Sonder, Sounder, I think, which is
sounds sort of familiar.
The realization that other people have lives that are in-depth and complicated and interesting as yours. And it's really, really hard. I mean, if you could just bundle up this whole communication thing in just a nice little bow, it's just don't be as selfish, which is so hard to do. But, try really hard to not just think about yourself in the conversation, or what am I going to say next, or oh, this will be funny, they'll think this is hilarious if I say this. Just try to focus as much as you can on the other people, and just try to just remember for a minute that you aren't the center of the universe, which is very hard because, it's very easy to just focus on yourself.
I do love making people laugh, though.
Which is fun.
It doesn't happen very often in a group, but when I make people laugh, I get pretty excited.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I nailed it. Like, I nailed the joke.
Yeah, so definitely remember that. Verbal deposits, instead of, oh, no one's complimented me on this new shirt I wore today. Go around and start telling people how they're glowing, or, what they did something really cool at work, or you're really proud of them for something.
And Miranda is so good at this.
Oh, thanks.
She always does this in a group. Like, say, hey, that's a cute top. And then she says that I have to think about what she means, but she means like shirt, I think.
Yes.
I do like pause like every time, like, that's so nice that Miranda said that. What was she saying? But then I remember, I know I should know, like, I'm so like anti-fashion. It's not even funny. But Miranda is so good at that stuff. Like,
this is the guy that didn't know the difference between a dress and a skirt.
I might not have known that.
Yes.
Thanks for bringing that up.
But
that was not a verbal deposit. But she knows I don't care. I don't care about that. So you can rag on me about fashion all you want. It's never going to offend me.
Yes. I understand what makes you tick, and that's why it's okay.
But let me go back to saying something nice about you.
Okay.
You always are complimenting people, and I pick up on that, and then can think that's good because, I can pick up on that and try to learn from that, and other people can as well. And before we move on, one more thing just with that in general, just the fact that, just trying to remember that you are valuable, especially in a group conversation. You have something to bring to what is going on as far as communication, because you can be a blessing to someone else by something that you have to say, regardless of whether it's going to affect you or not. So that's something I've really been learning more recently and just thinking about. I know we've talked about it on other shows, I'm sure, but it's just important to remember that. And I try to share that as much as I can, because other people can benefit from, the things you have to say, the stories you have. Don't feel like you have to be silent and that every time you speak, it's just about you. Because you definitely have the ability to speak into other people's lives as well.
Yes, that's a very good reminder.
And I only say that because, like I said, I'm just beginning to learn that as well. It's not something I've thought of before. I thought if I'm in a group and I'm going to talk, then it's about me and what I'm getting from me talking. And that's not really what it's about. It's about what you can, about being a blessing for other people.
Yes. And another thing about communicating is you really do need to meet people where they're at, which can be very difficult, but it's something that's very important. This kind of goes hand in hand with understanding the other person and being a good listener and, trying to speak their love language, trying to speak their language in general. It's just some people, there's some crazy people out there, and if you're communicating with a crazy person, you just gotta go with it. You can't use logic to someone who doesn't follow logic. It's just something that doesn't work. It's not going to translate. You're like, well, A means B and B means C. To them, that's no. A means Z. Like,
yeah.
So
You may have no idea what they're even talking about.
And this always reminds me of
Miranda.
Yes. When we worked at the retirement home, we had quite a few residents that had dementia, and it's just, it's so sad and it's awful to see. But if you had a resident that was, would come down, say to breakfast at 3 a.m. and is sitting there in the dining room, you can't just go up.
We did have those,
yes,
unfortunately. That was not a really rare occurrence. I'd say it didn't happen every night, but it happened often.
Yeah, and you go up to that person, you can't just say, hey, it's 2 a.m. What are you doing down here? Because that, to them, in their reality, it's breakfast. And you have to kind of go into their reality and work with their reality and find a way to make them want to. Because you can't make people do things they don't want to do. And you can't tell a person they're wrong because they're immediately going to just go, I'm right. So.
Yes, you have to learn to manipulate them. That's what Miranda... No, I'm just kidding. No, so, she has such a great point. I'm going to let her continue. But yeah, it's about... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
I had to make that joke.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's all I was trying to say. Obviously, don't be manipulative or be, try to undermine people in a sketchy way. But you
do have to meet people where they're at, especially in that case. Yeah, because it's like Miranda said, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to go up to them and say, okay, it's the middle of the night, go back. Even though I did say that at times. I'm like, actually, it's the middle of the night. And they'd be like, what? And you just like, but I mean, you can say those things, but it's just being gracious and just like, hey, like, I'm sure, like, you must, you can always make like another excuse. Like, you would always say like, oh, you must have like messed up your clocks or something.
Yeah,
you try to
like, oh, I think your watch is off, or
Yeah, like, hey, or did you miss supper? Like, did you miss the last 12 hours? I don't know. I tried to like, you can make it light, make a joke out of it. I think, and that's really helpful for any kind of conversation. Now, there are certain times where you shouldn't make a joke. And I've been probably guilty of that. But there are certain times where you definitely can liven up the conversation and just, Miranda talks about this a lot, is just help the person save face. That's something from
How to Win Friends and Influence People by
Thank you.
Dale Carnegie.
Forgot the title of that for a second.
Great book. Everyone who wants to be a better communicator should read that book.
Yeah, there's so much timeless and advice in that book, but just about helping people to save face, and in that kind of situation, in communication in general, that's just so important.
And Jordan makes fun of me for this because I do this to him all the time. I try to use like mind games because
well, literally for the first 5 years of our marriage, it worked, and I had no idea you were doing it.
He didn't know it was happening.
I'm not even joking about this. This is a real thing, and it's awesome.
So, for example,
now that I know about it.
For example, Jordan gets really animated when he's talking, and he gets passionate about something. And every time we're driving, and he gets really into a conversation, it's like he forgets like to even pay any attention to, like, he's driving safely, but he's like direction wise, like he has no idea where he is. He could just be. Like, we could be driving down the highway and, the exit where we live, and we have lived for a year, he could just zoom right by it if he's talking about something. So
can't argue with that, unfortunately.
I love it about you. It's very endearing.
That's nice.
But, so, for example, if we were getting close and he's getting all worked up, instead of being nasty and saying, babe,
you idiot,
don't miss our exit again. Like I could either bring something up about home, like, oh, when we get home, we should like make chicken or something like so random, but it just brings his mind back to home. I'm driving. Oh, or I'll say like, oh, look at that weird billboard or something, and like just get him like refocused.
I love this. It's so funny to me because like it's so true that you do
it's
this.
But it's a way to like not be nasty, but like try to get the person to where they need to get mentally without shoving it in their face, basically.
I mean, yeah, it can even apply to simple things like, taking the trash out. Miranda could say something like, one of, like, or like, I don't know, we need to take the trash out. That was a bad example.
Well, I would
know what
probably,
I'm trying to say? What would you say?
If I wanted you to take the trash out.
The expert at manipulation and communication. That's what we should name this episode. Manipulation and communication.
Yeah, but I would come in and then I'd be like, man, like, why does our trash start smelling so quickly? But in no way.
Okay,
like...
you have said that before, and I have not realized that. Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing
because it's
until
not.
now.
I mean, I'm not saying you have to take out the trash. I'm not saying why haven't you taken out the trash. I'm saying we have a need here that one of us has to do, and I'm giving you the opportunity.
Exactly.
Like...
And then just to bring it's funny, but like what Miranda just said, giving me the opportunity is so huge for communication. Setting up the other person to have success, whether it's in marriage or in like any kind of relationship. Oh, I know I just went serious for a second, but that was such a good point, because you don't, if you said like, Jordan, take out the trash, like, yeah, you can say that and yeah, I can do it, but like, again, if it's my idea and I'm doing it for you, or if I'm doing it to meet that need, I'm going to be so much happier about doing that than to have like, most people don't like to get told what to do.
No.
And there are certain things that you don't really want to beat around the bush. You would just want to say, hey, Miranda, can you do this for me? Or Jordan, can you do this for me?
Can you take a shower? You stink. Like,
yeah.
For real. But that's actually...
I could take 3 showers a day and be happy. Miranda is not like that.
Yeah. I'm
she could go a week.
1 per day. I don't go over 1. But that was another point actually in how to win friends and influence people.
We always go back to that book.
I know, which is crazy. This book is 100 years old or something crazy.
It's insanely old. I think it was in the early 1919.
Yeah, like
maybe? I don't know.
They were like riding horse-ridden carriages or whatever. Like,
some of the examples are like, oh wow, this book was written a long time ago, but it still applies. It's amazing.
Yeah, the celebrities they use as examples are all completely antiquated, but it just makes it more funny. But that was just, you want the person to come to the idea on their own. You can't force somebody. You can't force your opinion on anybody. I mean, that's so clear. Like, every human being should know that. The second you try to force an opinion down somebody else's throat, it's like, no. Like, they're like, just on principle, no, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm not going to do that. But if you make the person think it's their idea and this reminds me of...
Inception.
No,
I was thinking of Inception.
I was going to say My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
That's completely different. How does that relate?
This one of like...
I want to hear it.
It's a really good quote. She says, "The man is the head, but the woman is the neck." That was the worst Greek accent.
No, it was so good until the end. You gave up on it.
I did.
You lost heart. It was so good, and then you lost.
I did. That's okay.
It started out great.
But it's just...
How does that work?
But she's just saying that, she's like turning the head where, where he needs to be like focused, but he doesn't she's not forcing it. She's just, it's part of it.
Okay.
Inception, I don't know. Are you talking about
dream? You just said planning.
Dream within
you
a
said
dream?
Planning ideas, and that's what they do. That's why I thought of that.
Oh, yeah. Or if this doesn't work for you, you can, how'd they do that? Was that a pill or was that they put him under? How did they do that in that movie?
I don't know.
Needle injection? I can't remember.
They went in their mind somehow.
Yeah, so if this doesn't work for
remember.
you, if this doesn't work for you, try to figure out how they did it in Inception.
Yeah, watch that movie and then do that.
Plan it actually in their mind. So,
but yeah, it really, at the end of the day, it's not about manipulation. I say that as a joke because I've always, since I've learned about it about 6 months ago that this was going on for the entire time we've been together, I call it Miranda manipulation. And now I notice certain times when she doesn't. I don't notice all the time because she's so good at it. But I notice sometimes I'm like, hey, are you trying to get me? And then she'll smile like, yep. But like, honestly, I would much rather have someone do that than tell me what to do or nag or any of those things. Those are all negative things. Communication this way is really just like, friendly reminders, letting me save face in my ignorance, those things.
Yeah. So that was, in a nutshell, all of our different ways of improving communication. These are all very applicable. You can use them immediately. Just go out and try being a better listener. Go out and try letting someone save face. Just be
intentional about it.
Yeah,
you're not going to learn if you're not intentional about it.
And if this, you still have a lot of questions, go ahead and buy the Win Friends and Influence People. It's such a good book. I think if more people followed those ideas, it would be not quite as crazy in the world today.
It's amazing, yeah. It's a very impactful book, for sure.
Yes. So, yeah, I hope that helped everybody. We love talking to you and hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, we love talking about communication in general. So if you have any questions, definitely leave a comment on the blog post. If you're listening to this podcast on my website, or if you have any questions, feel free to email us as well. You can just email me at jordan@jmring.com, put podcast in the subject line, and then Miranda and I will both get back to you together. But we definitely love talking about, as you can tell just by our animation in this podcast, we love talking about communication. There are a lot of things, obviously, that we said we need to work on. Everyone has things we need to work on. But Miranda and I have made it a focus in our marriage to communicate and to communicate often and to communicate well. So we're just happy to be able to share that with you and talk about that. So we just thank you for listening to the end of this podcast. Like I said, go ahead and leave a comment. We would definitely love to communicate with you. But until next time, just stay super frosty, friends. Hopefully
frosty.
It will get warmer soon here in North Carolina.
We're getting there.
We'll change our end saying to not
Stay toasty.
stay toasty. We can't say that yet. So stay frosty, friends. Have a good one.